It is time for Jim Wagner to come up.
Good evening. My name is Jim Wagner. I'm in the class of 80, just like our guest speaker is tonight, and the young man that stood up and gave prayer for us. Mark and I were talking about this a minute ago. If there's several coaches here and some teachers here that would have guessed 45 years ago that us three would have anything to do with this, they wouldn't have guessed us. So, anyway, I don't really recall the year that Chuck and Curtis and Chris came to town, but I'm sure that some of our coaches that are here tonight could remember that, because they were tall, athletic, and I'm sure they were very excited to see those guys come to town. That would be rewarded later on because they would perform well and they were all good guys. So, having said that, when we weren't here at school and we were out away from school, there were several of us here tonight, myself included, that would say, we would later explain to our own children, we experienced life experiences with the Stiles boys. So that was something cool to do. But, so Diane brought home that really cool placemat this week, and I was reading on that, and I thought, wow, my friend Chris is like a rock star, man. Gee whiz. So you get down to that last line, it talks about a cardboard box and a trash can. So if you don't really understand what that means, you take that out of context, well, here's what I think it means. He was trying to fire up his teammates, which that would be me and some others, so Chris's enthusiasm for football borders on insanity sometimes, I'm telling you. So, but he was trying to fire us up. His enthusiasm was enormous, and he was always a great help. He encouraged us, whether that meant he slapped you in the back of the head, in the back of the helmet, or if he grabbed you by your face mask and pulled you closer so that he understood that he had your attention. Whatever, and I probably received that too. His dedication and his commitment to Bethany was unbelievable. He was all about Bethany and all about the Bethany Mustangs. Even today, when he and I will be texting each other, which usually has to do with some sporting event, he'll most of the time end with "Go Mustangs." He really does. So so if you take that last line and you move it to the top of that page, you kind of see what was to come in his future, and really what's still coming. He's not done. I figured out if he comes back for our 50th in 6 years, that placemat will have to be a tablecloth. It just won't be big enough, for the stuff that he does. And so his commitment and loyalty is amazing to us, Bethany people, the Bethany Mustangs, and even his family, his son, Christopher's up there going to film. And for what I would call his family and his adult community, which is now Oklahoma City and Stillwater and all those places down there. So it's just great that he came back for this. So having said that, I've got to do a lot of cool stuff in my life. I've been very fortunate, but this is one of the coolest ones. So tonight's guest speaker from the class of 1980, my friend, Mr. Chris Stiles.
Well, thank you, Wags. Golly, this is a wonderful opportunity. Thank you for having me. I'll tell you what, real quick, Jim Wagner dedicated his life to serving Moultrie County, to defending you and serving you as a police officer in Moultrie County. Give Wags a hand. That's my man. it's so good to be home. I think they say you can take the boy out of the town, but you can't take the town out of the boy. And that certainly that's my life. Everything started for me here in Bethany. And I just got an attitude of gratitude. I'm just so fortunate, so blessed, and just so excited about this opportunity to be here tonight with you. One thing Wags did not mention about our football is our senior year, and that was, it was 80, we graduated 80, but, the 1979 football season, he forgot to tell you that we were 0-9. We did not win a game. But I got to tell you this, I really got to tell you this about this team. With guys like Wags, myself, the fabulous elder brothers, the late Tim Forey, others on that football team, I got to tell you about that team. We weren't even as good as our record would have indicated. I mean, that was some bad football back in those days. I come back here and I walked around, even walked over here on the court. So many great memories just being on this court. And Coach Bill Pine is here tonight, and I want to just say this. Remember back when in 1974, 75, and then in 75, 76, remember the pride and all the gold shirts. This was Mustang country. Remember those days? Those were special. And Coach led us, I think we were 52-3 during that time. Think about that. 2 seasons, 52-3. Would you give Coach a hand? I mean, I'm telling you, that was a special time. So, Coach had, I coached for a lot of years. I coached football, I didn't coach basketball, but, I'm right-handed. And most people, most of us are right-handed. And as a coach, sometimes you have a tendency to call plays right-handed or put your best players on the right side of a formation or a set. And Coach was kind of like that. So, he put the really good players on the right side, the Tony Rouches, the Brian Marshalls. He put the real good players on the right side, and the not so good ones like myself on the left side. So I played over here on offense on the left wing. I mean, I played right about here. Okay, and then one night we're playing Tower Hill. It's my junior year. I'm over here, we're playing Tower Hill, and they kept passing the ball. Now, they didn't have a three-point line, so I was probably about right here. I kid you not, I shot 7 straight air balls. Now, let me tell you about that. That's hard to do. I mean, I don't think any of you could do it. I mean, think about this. You're standing right here. I don't care if you had any basketball skill or not. You could throw the ball up there, and you'd hit the rim 1 out of 7 times. I was trying to hit the rim. 7 straight air balls. Finally, Pine calls me over. He says, about right in here, he says, "Hey, Stiles," he says, you're going to get the ball here, and they're going to let you shoot. And you got 1 or 2 choices. You can either shoot or turn the ball over. He says, if I were you, take the turnover. I mean, man. Now, I may have embellished that a little bit, but I'm telling you, it was bad. It was bad that night. Do any of you remember the careers? Okay, so Cleo, I remember Cleo, she worked at the bank. And then you had, Larry and Dale and Jim. And Jim was a teammate. He was in the class of 79. And they called him Pooh. And Jim, he was on the team this season. He didn't really play a lot. But Career, what's so funny about him, he didn't really run. He just kind of hopped. I mean, it was weird. He just kind of hopped when he ran. And he's really more set for track than he was for basketball. And he tells a story. He told this story at the basketball banquet that year, at the end of the 1979 season. He tells a story, and he says, we're playing a game, and he's sitting on the end of the bench, and then all of a sudden he's got his buddies that are up in the stands, right up there in the corner, and they're going, "We want Career." We want career. We want career. It just gets louder and louder. And you know, most of us, if that was me, I'd be a little embarrassed. But not career, man. He was like, we want career. He was into it. We want career. He's into it. And all of a sudden, sure enough, he's thinking, you know what, Coach Pine's going to hear that. It's going to put pressure on Coach to put me in the game. Sure enough, Coach Pine goes, Purr, get down here. Yells at him, Purr, get down here. So Purr, you know, he hops down here to the end of the bench. He hops down, and he's, you know, he's like this. Yeah, coach. And Coach Pine puts his hand on one shoulder of Prayers, and he points up to those guys who are yelling, we want career, and he says, Prayer, go up there and see what those guys want. Coach. Oh, man. How does a kid who graduated from here in 1990, you know, how do you end up in Oklahoma? You know, I really ended up in Oklahoma my whole life, and also in the high school yearbook, it would say, if you looked at Chris Stiles, it'd say college and coach football. That was it. I wanted to go to college and I wanted to be a football coach, and that's what I was on the path to do. I went 2 years to Millikan University. Made it all the way to third string linebacker. And I was kind of going through some struggles at the time. And I had one friend in Oklahoma. He's here tonight. It's my friend B.T. Mitchell. And Mitchell came to Bethany in the summers of 1977, 78. And we became friends. And we just stayed friends. He ended up being the lake chaplain in Shelbyville, but he lived in Bethany. He lived in an apartment downtown, right there by the railroad tracks. I never remember walking those steps. You know that building when you pull in, and it used to be Butler, I think Butler Ace Hardware, and you pull in and you look at that building, and it looks like it's just a wall. You know, it doesn't look, because of the angle of the back of it, it looks like it's just a wall. Well, he lived at the top of that. And we became friends, and we stayed friends, and I was struggling a little bit, and he said, hey, Stiles, why don't you just come to Oklahoma and come for the summer in 1982, come down to Oklahoma. He lived in Shawnee, Oklahoma. He was a youth minister at a church. He said, you can help me with that youth group, and you can get a summer job. And I did. I got a summer job for the Shawnee, Oklahoma Parks and Recreation. I worked there, and I had full intention, 100% intention of coming back to Millikan for my junior year. And then one day there was someone in his youth group that was a college student. She was going up to re-enroll at Oklahoma State in Stillwater, Oklahoma. And I just went along with her. And we were walking around campus. I thought, man, this is pretty cool. I never been on a big college campus my whole life. Never seen it. Millikan, small college. Went to a small high school. Small college, Millikan University. But I'd never been on a big campus. And then all of a sudden we went by the football stadium. I thought, wow, that's a pretty cool stadium. And then I asked my friend, I said, what do you think if we go in the coach's office? I just kind of like to see their weight room and different things. And I met a coach there. And we had a conversation. And I just asked the coach, I said, could I walk on? Could I walk on and play football here? He says, well, how fast are you? I lied. Because I wasn't fast. And then he says, well, let me check with the head coach. 2 days later, in our apartment, I get a call, and the coach says, Coach Jimmy Johnson, our head football coach at Oklahoma State at the time, he said you could walk on and you could live in the dorm. The dorm was Iba Hall. I mean, you remember remember Henry Iba? He was a legendary coach. It was Iba Hall, named after him. He used to coach at Oklahoma State. And you can live in the dorm. And, that's all it took. I said, okay. And I transferred. And I went to Oklahoma State, and that's where it all started. Now, let me transition back to here. I coached for a lot of years. And, coaches are notorious. I can't remember Coach Pine or Coach Inman or any of the coaches I had here, if we ever had a theme or something of that nature that we, tagline. So at Oklahoma State, Jimmy Johnson's was, press on. At Notre Dame, Coach Lou Holtz, if you watch Notre Dame, it's play like a champion today. You see the signs as we're leaving the tunnel at Notre Dame. Mine became make the play. And I use that theme. And when you think of make the play, you think of, the good players. Let's come back here to Bethany. You think of the really good players that they could make the shot, or they could make the rebound, or they could make the run out on the football field. They could make those good plays. That's what you think about it. But think about guys like the great Mike Overlot. I mean, because he was a playmaker. I mean, he could make plays. Tony Rouch, Brian Marshall, my teammates, Bart Spencer. He could make a play. When we needed it the most, he could make a play. And then, Dave Height. Dave could make a play. He was good. He was a good player. And then out on the football field, I remember Jim Brewer. He was class of '79. Brewer, he was a good football player, good tackler, good linebacker. Van Bolen was in class of '79. Van, could make runs on the football field. So making the play, but make the play really goes beyond what we think in life. I look at it from a different lens. Lou Holtz, when I was at Notre Dame, Lou Holtz would say this: there's never a right time to do the wrong thing, and there's never a wrong time to do the right thing. It's just doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. I don't know what else to say. Just do it. Just do your job. Do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. So I want to share a couple stories here about making the play. Doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. Well, let me ask you a question. Would you dedicate 3 years of your life to one play that would last about 10 seconds and no one would notice except one person? Okay, so dedicate everything you got for 3 straight years just for one brief moment that really no one noticed but one other person. Let me go back to Oklahoma State. I walk on. First year I'm a red shirt, I can't play. They don't have the transfer portal back then, and you're not eligible. So I couldn't play the first year, but I practiced. I'm on what they call the scout team. Now the scout team is it's the prep team. We run the defenses of Nebraska or Oklahoma or Missouri and all those teams that we were in the Big 8 at the time, and we would run their defenses and go against our starting players, our first and second team, really the good players. The not so good players were on the scout team, and that was me. The next year as a junior, I'm still on the scout team. Now, if you're a 4th year in college playing football and you're still on the prep team, on the scout team, your football future is not real bright. We get off to a great start that year at Oklahoma State. We're 4-0, really a surprising team. Jimmy Johnson is our head coach. He went on to be the Dallas Cowboys head coach, and he's on TV now. We're 4-0. Now, the mighty Nebraska Cornhuskers are coming to Stillwater, Oklahoma. Now, this is 1983. This is not the same Nebraska team that the Fighting Illini beat last year. Back in those days, those boys would steamroll you. I mean, they would bury you, and they would run the ball down your throats and make you like it. And at the time, in 1983, Sports Illustrated came out right before we played them. Sports Illustrated came out and said, this is the greatest football team, college football team of all time. And they were coming to Stillwater, Oklahoma. The Monday of that game week, I am in my dorm room. I get a call from the linebacker coach. He says, Stiles, we're going to make some changes. We're moving some guys around. We're moving you up to second team linebacker. and you're going to play Saturday against Nebraska. I didn't know whether to be excited or run for the county line. I wasn't sure, but I was going to play against the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Well, what happened then, we played them. We were a 29-point underdog. We played them off their feet. We had a chance to win the game. We lost 14-10. I didn't get in the game, but I did the next week against the University of Oklahoma. And then I got to play, quite a bit through the end of that season. We had a great season, ended up season ranked, and it was a really good season for Oklahoma State. And for a walk-on, and really from my background, even just to get on the field in a major college, stadium for a major college football team, just to play very minimal, that was a pretty big deal. We go into the 1984 season, my senior year. I come back to Bethany. Excuse me a second. I come back to Bethany. That summer, me and my buddy Dave Hite, man, we're moving weights, man. We're lifting weights, didn't we, Dave? We were getting after it. So we would lift weights out at the Hite farm, out in his shed, in his barn, and then we'd come back here. And in fact, I walked down there today to look at it. In that little room across from the locker room, it's a laundry room. They had some weights back then. Me and Dave would come down, and man, it was just me and him. We trained together. He trained with me. He was playing basketball, college basketball at a community college here. And him and I got after it. And I went back in great shape. And I really only had one goal. We had a lot of guys coming back that year. And in fact, the guy that played ahead of me ended up playing in the NFL for about 5 or 6 years. And in fact, we had like 9 defensive players on our Oklahoma State football team that played in the National Football League. And it wasn't never to be a starter. It was just to be a key contributor. That if the coaches need me, or if they needed to put me in to finish a game, or somebody got hurt, I could go make some plays and at least hold up, and then kind of play on all the special teams, and really be a key contributor that year. Well, I go back, me and Dave work out. I go back in great shape. I'm strong, and ready to go, and I'm playing well. Things are working out for the first week or so during fall camp. Then one practice, 2 things happened to me, and they were both bad. I tear a meniscus cartilage, like my friend Lori Friesner. I tear a meniscus cartilage in my right knee, and I rupture a disc in my back. And I knew that if I, had surgery, which I probably need to do, my career's over. And so I thought, okay, I'll just set out for a little bit, try and heal up, and then come back, and that's what I did. But I just never could get back. Once you get and then when you're a walk-on, they're not waiting on you to get ready. They're just moving up a scholarship guy, and so it wasn't good. And I'll be honest with you, I got so discouraged. I was discouraged about myself. I was discouraged. I really, honestly, was close to quitting. I was thinking, I've kind of done what I need to do here. I pushed it to the limit. I got to the level that I never thought I could get to. But just something inside of me just kind of kept me from, wanting to quit. Lo and behold, I don't know to this day why this happened. We're having a great season, and we're getting ready to play in the last game of the season in the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, Florida. And the coaches put me on what we call the punt team. The punt team is when, you don't make a first down, you punt the ball to the opposing team, and then you keep them from getting to the punter, and then you run down the field and you cover the punt. So they put me on the punt team. And we're playing South Carolina, and I am the right up back. So you got the center, the deep snapper, and then you've got the guard over here, and I'm kind of in between them. I'm what they call an up back. South Carolina that year blocked a bunch of punts. And they did it through that gap. We call it the A gap. Our gaps in football. A, B, C, real high-level stuff. And so I'm in what I call the A gap, and they would send 2 defenders through that gap, against one, and they'd try and steamroll that up back that I played, and then they'd go try and block a punt. Well, I'm in there, and I'm practicing, and they give me a technique. Okay, instead of just trying to just hang in there and brace yourself and just get drilled, I had to do this technique, which is totally illegal today. I had to cross over my inside foot and punch across my body and then leg whip my backside. Now, totally illegal today. So we're playing the game. There's 82,000 people. It's a record crowd for the Gator Bowl. We're playing. It's a low-scoring game, so we're putting the ball. And, I'm doing my technique and doing my job, but I'm just getting hammered. I mean, it's like getting hit with 100 Dave Hyde elbows all over your body, man. It's just brutal. Over and over, just same thing, but I'm doing my job. I'm keeping them off the punter. I'm blocking. I'm getting just drilled to the ground, but I'm bouncing up. And by the time I got on my feet and got down the field, the play had already ended. It's late in the game. We're down 14-13. We're backed up in our own end zone, and we're ready to punt. Okay, and here those two guys are coming right through my gap. They got snot coming out of their nose, they got blood in their eyes, and they're in a bad mood. And here they come. And I do my technique. I hit, punch, crossover, kick, and I do not know what happened, but when I punched, the guy I punched, he must have tripped or something. I don't know what happened, but I punched him, and he's down on the ground, and I kick, and it's just some type of magic. I can't even do it now, but some type of magic. I kept my balance, hooked the other guy with my foot, and I was able to stay up, and I get, I'm on my feet, and I just start sprinting down the field to cover the punt. The punt breaks to the sideline. We lose containment. The punt breaks to the sideline, and I go and I make the tackle about the 50-yard line. That was the last play I ever played in a football game. We hold them, they punt to us, we take the ball the length of the field, score, win the Gator Bowl 21-14 that year. The big thing is that was the biggest game in the history of Oklahoma State, because at that time Oklahoma State had never won 10 games in a season. And we went into that game 9-2, we won it, we were the champions, we won 10 games, and you celebrate, and then you go to the locker room, you celebrate, and then as a senior, you just kind of disperse. You never go watch the game film like you would if on a normal. You just kind of go off and disperse. Probably a couple months later, I had to go by the football office. I was student teaching at the time, and I had to go by the football office to pick something up. And our special teams coach by the name of Brad Seeley kind of comes out from the coach's office, and he sees me. Now, Brad ended up being, he's kind of a special teams guru. He ended up going to the NFL as a coach. He was NFL Special Teams Coach of the Year. He coached for the New England Patriots for years, won a lot of Super Bowls. He was kind of a guru of special teams. And he sees me and he says, "Stiles, I've been meaning to see you. I'm so glad you came back." He said, that Gator Bowl team, that Gator Bowl night, that technique, that was the best anyone has ever done. I've never seen it done like that before. Said that was incredible. I'm thinking, yeah. So here's the thing. It didn't seem like a big deal. I mean, it wasn't catching a touchdown pass or making a tackle on the goal line. It was just doing what I was supposed to do when I was supposed to do it, and doing it to how I was supposed to do it. And then, that's making a play. And that was making a play back then. But let me tell you, but the story doesn't really end there. Because I was able to finish what I started and not quit when it got too hard, here's what it led to. Because the coaches there trusted me, and they could count on me, a year later they asked me to come be on the coaching staff as a graduate assistant in 1986. There I met the love of my life, Maria, who I've been married to for 36 years, because I was able to go back to Oklahoma State. Through the relationships at Oklahoma State, I got connected at the University of Notre Dame with Lou Holtz. I got on as a graduate assistant coach at the University of Notre Dame during a time it was one of the most storied programs in the history, and it was one of the best times ever in the history of Notre Dame football that I was there. I even got a master's degree from Notre Dame, from the University of Notre Dame. Now listen, let me tell you something about that, why that means something. My classmates from the class of 1980, I got to tell you something. I graduated in the half of the class that made you in the upper half possible. Okay, now, I had company. Bart, Wags, they were down at the bottom with me. But I was not a good student. And, obviously to get a degree from the University of Notre Dame, a master's degree. And then, from there I went to Galesburg, Illinois, and was a head football coach there. I was only 25 years old. And it really kicked my career off, kicked my coaching career off. And able to have some success as a coach because I had such a good foundation laid. And then later on, because of all those relationships and, leadership, hopefully leadership skills that I've developed over the years. And I then, went into sales and had success. And then now what I'm doing is I raise money. I raise money for schools. And that helps others. So, little thing. Didn't seem like much. Make the play. Just make the play. Make the play and make the play every day. Now, here's where you come in. What put me in a position to make that play at Oklahoma State is really the lessons that I learned from you here in Bethany. It really comes back to here. It comes back home. In 1975, my mom and my two older brothers, Chuck and Curtis, we moved here. And I was a mess, to say the least. You remember the old movie back in those days? There was a Cheech and Chong movie that came out called Up in Smoke. That was my life. I was up in smoke. All I could care about was smoking pot, getting high. My son who's up there today, he knows this story. He's heard this many times. That's all I could, I cared about. I didn't care about anything else. I mean, think about this. I quit football my freshman year. I quit. Coach Pine really should have kicked me off the basketball team my freshman year. I made D's and F's in school. Nothing, that's not what champions are made of. I can promise you that. Remember Miss Marilyn Jones, our math teacher? Remember Miss Jones? Okay, she'd sit there with the overhead projector and just checking all the math problems. Remember that, Billy? So I'm walking down the hallway one day, and this is how I was. Walking my head down on my chin, just walking down the hallway. I was probably stoned, I don't know, but I'm walking down the hallway. And then here comes Mrs. Jones coming the other way. There's no one else, me. And she stops. She stops me. And she says, I see a handsome young man that's got potential that walks around with his head down. Wow. Here's what surprised me. I don't remember Mrs. Jones saying anything nice to any of us. And she stopped me. And she said that to me. And it kind of rattled me a little bit. Here's the lesson. People need love and understanding the most when they deserve it the least. People need love and understanding the most when they deserve it the least. Now, something happened to me in the summer of 1977. I decided I was going to play football again. And I started coming up here that summer and just running around real old cinder track. Man, those old cinders, man, they were like, you'd be ankle deep trying to run around that track. And then Bill Miller, our football coach, remember, he would always make us run a mile after the end of practice to get in shape in our full pads. And I remember that from the year before, after when I quit football. And so I was running that track and I started getting in shape. But what it did, it kind of got me away from doing the things I was doing. And kind of for the first time, I just kind of had a little bit of sense of purpose to me. And I worked and I got in shape. And because I had that, I knew I had to get in shape, because I didn't want to quit again. Because I imagine there was a bunch of guys saying, Stiles is coming out. He'll quit once. He's going to quit again. Here's the lesson. For things to change, you have to change, or they'll always remain the same. For things to change, you have to change, or they'll always remain the same. My sophomore year, I got in trouble I got kicked out of an English class, and right up there in those bleachers, Coach Randy Niles. Coach was a young coach out of Milliken. He was assistant football coach. He was assistant to Coach Pine in basketball. And Randy Niles, right up in those bleachers, kind of set me down. He says, Stiles, do you know you can be a leader? What? I can be a leader? Stiles, do you know that you can be a leader? Today I give a presentation with a company I work for in Boston, and we have this conference every summer, and I give a presentation about asking questions. And really just learning how to ask questions and then be an active listener when you're trying to connect with people. And I have a PowerPoint, and I always put that. I ask them, what's the greatest question that was ever asked to you? And I said, mine is, Stiles, do you know you can be a leader? Here's the lesson. You have to believe in people before they're strong enough to believe in themselves. You have to believe in people before they're strong enough to believe in themselves. After my airball episode out here, my junior year in basketball, Coach Pine, he set me on the bench. I think he was trying to get my butt to send my brain a message. And he said, and I'm like, I'm just going to quit. So I go up there in his office one day before practice, and I said, Coach, I just don't want to play anymore. And Coach, he didn't really try and talk me out of it. He just started asking me questions. He says, Stiles, well, what are you going to do? Well, I don't know. Well, until you figure it out, just get back out there to practice. And I'm like, okay, yes, sir. Here's the lesson. If you quit when things aren't going your way, you'll have a tendency to do it the rest of your life. When you quit when things aren't going your way, you'll have a tendency to do it the rest of your life. Before my senior year, Coach Pine, Coach Niles, and Coach Miller left. And I was devastated. I was devastated. But then I found out, and I found this out through life, when one door closes, another door opens. And then here comes Coach Randy Inman. And Randy really had a different approach of how he did things. He worked hard, but he kind of made it fun. He would say jokes and he would make fun of himself. Or there was just something about Inman that it was fun. And we had a real experienced team. We had a good basketball team that year. I remember, I'm so proud that, we were one of the Meridian Conference champions, one of the championship teams that year. We really had a good team. It was myself, it was Bart Spencer, it was Doug Morris, it was Dave Hyde, it was Jeff Bone, it was Rick Grove, it was Paul Bone, and then Inman he called them the kids. Remember the kids? Little Scotty Martin, little Scotty, and little Mikey Carroll, and Kendall Mulvaney. They called them the kids. That was our basketball team that year. And we had a great year. And I think what happened was Inman, even when the situations, we won a lot of close games, and when the situation got tense, it was just his humor and his disposition and how he coached. We had fun, and he relaxed us, and we won a bunch of close games that year. Here's the lesson: take life seriously, but don't take yourself too serious. Take life seriously, but don't take yourself too serious. I raise money for a living. And I help schools, and I have to go meet with people and ask them for a lot of money. And I always say this to people when I'm teaching them how to do this. I always say, have fun and the money will come. Really, you got to relax. You got to have fun. You got to make fun of yourself. And what happens in those stressful situations, they're not stressful. Because basically, you remember, I'm just the messenger. I'm not the message. And he just relaxes you. And so that, Coach, the way he did that, he made it fun. He didn't take himself too serious, but he took serious what we were supposed to be doing. That same year, we had a new English teacher come in. Her name was Virginia Harshman. And it was really the first time outside of a coach that really someone invested. I felt like someone was really investing time in me, and she taught me how to write. I think it was the first book I ever read. I think it was The Death of a Salesman. And just how to read and write and have an appreciation for that. Mrs. Harshman, that has served me for my entire life. Entire life. How to communicate. Warren Buffett says, you can have all the knowledge in the world, but if you can't communicate that knowledge, it's like winking at your girlfriend in the dark. Nothing's going to happen. You've got to be able to communicate so you can connect to people. And being able to write and being able to speak has served me in everything I've ever done in my life. Here's the lesson. What she said was really the four most powerful words you can ever say to someone. I believe in you. I believe in you. And I'm so grateful for that. There's so many other people in the community that impacted my life. Marge Overlap, we were just talking. Marge, I was broke as a joke. There was no way I could pay to go to college, but Marge spent hours upon hours helping me fill out college applications. Not college applications, but financial aid packages so I could go to school. Because she'd done that through with Mike and Dave, the same thing. And so she was able to help me do that. And then she also helped me write papers early in school. We were just talking about that back there. So she just added so much value to my life. And then my friends Jim and Carol Parsons. Carol, how many meals did I eat at your house? You can't even add them up. I mean, hundreds. They opened the doors of their home. No matter when I knocked on that door always opened. And there was always something to eat. And there was always a place to go. And they always set an example of what a godly couple should be and how you should be hospitable to everyone. And then there was my friend Hollis Dick. And Hollis gave me a job. I had to have a job. I said I didn't have any money, couldn't pay for my car insurance, couldn't pay for anything. And Hollis Dick at H.O. Dick Transfer. Hollis, a wonderful man with a big heart. But I could tell you one thing about Hollis, he could give you a butt chewing with the best of them. I mean, he really could. He could give you a butt chewing with the best of them. But here's what I know, and here's what I learned, is he taught me how to do a job and do it right. Wash the trailer from the top and let the water soak down instead of trying to wash it from the bottom up. Sweep the floor the way you should sweep the floor. Put the things back better than the way you found them. Make everything square with the world, he would say. That has served me so well. Because guess what? You can't do the big things unless you do the little things first. And that's what he taught me. And then there's one other man I just have to mention here, and that's Don Bone. And, if you were in this era with Mr. Bone, he was just Mr. Bone to all of us. Dee can tell you that. It was Mr. Bone. And there were so many lessons in life he taught us. Now, let's think about this. What if everyone today followed what Mr. Bone taught us? Tuck your shirt in. Take your hat off when you enter a building. Don't run in the hallways. Respect and honor that flag. What would our world be today? You know what he was teaching us? He was teaching us that life is about your obligations and your responsibilities. Today everybody's like, what's my rights or freedoms, or I can do what I want. No, it's about what your obligations are and what your responsibilities are. And with Mr. Bone, I never had a presence of a father in my life. But with Mr. Bone in my life, I never felt fatherless. And that was a special man. And there's just so many other people that I could mention here. I want to pause here for a second, and I'll wrap this up. I want to share another story in my life where someone made a play and it wasn't on an athletic field. It's May 3rd, 1999 in Oklahoma City. I'm coaching in a local high school I live about 6-7 blocks away. It's called Westmore High School in southwest Oklahoma City. It's a weird day. It's just the temperatures and, it had a weird feel. The atmosphere had a weird feel to it. It was, kind of a hot, cold mixture. It's just one of those days that you get once in a while in Oklahoma, and, that's really where the tornadoes start to happen. There have been reports earlier in the day that in southwest Oklahoma that there's a really big tornado starting to get together. In fact, 2 tornadoes kind of came together in one. It was just an unbelievable sight. I come home from spring football practice that night, and my son Christopher, who's in the 2nd grade, he's about 7, 8 years old. Christopher meets me in the door. Now, Christopher, instead of watching cartoons and different things, you know what he did back in those days? He was a Weather Channel nut. He watched the Weather Channel. And he meets me at the door, and he says, "Dad, there's a tornado coming, and it's coming right for us, and you need to do something about it." I'm like, hey, buddy, it's okay. Settle down. We'll get in the middle bathtub. We'll be protected. We'll be fine. See, in Oklahoma, it's clay soil, so we don't have basements. And we didn't have a storm shelter at the time or a safe room at the time. And so I'm getting ready. We got Christopher's about 7 or 8. We have Gina, who's about 4 at the time, and then Maria, my wife, and myself. And I remember pulling a mattress off one of the kids' beds. And we started getting that middle bathtub in the middle of the house, and we're going to get in it. We're getting about ready, and then all of a sudden, the phone rings. And it's Christopher's 1st grade teacher they had in the 1st grade that we hadn't talked to since he was in the 1st grade for almost a year. Her name is Deborah, and Deborah says, "What are you guys going to do?" "I don't know. I guess we're just going to hunker down in the middle bathtub and ride this thing out." She says, "What about going down to the field house at Westmore where you coach?" And because Christopher was so upset, it kind of hit me like, maybe I ought to take some action here. Just doing something. Taking some action may change how he feels. So sure enough, we get in the car, we go to the field house, we put all the 2 families, we put everybody in football helmets. I should have patented that because I never heard anybody do that before. We put everybody in football helmets. Christopher, Gina, everybody's got a football helmet. We're in the coach's locker room. We're in the shower. All of a sudden, electricity goes off. And then all of a sudden, there was this giant hailstorm. I mean, I never heard anything. Boom, 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 boom. I mean, it's crazy. I've never heard a hailstorm like that. And then it got silent. And I remember thinking to myself, this is going to happen. We're going to be in a tornado. And I'm laying over my family and praying, and all of a sudden I hear this loud noise. "Daddy! I got gum in my hair!" I said, "Gina, shut up and buckle up!" I know that's bad parenting, but I was under duress, I'm telling you. We're waiting for something to fall. We hear this. I think people say it sounds like a locomotive. I think it was like a giant weed eater. And you just hear it just ripping through, and we're waiting for something to fall down on our heads. Finally, it ends after about 15 seconds, and nothing falls, and we get up and praising the Lord, and all of a sudden, I walk out of the field house, and I start walking to my house. I get closer and closer, and it looks like a war zone. I mean, it's a war zone. And I can't find my house. And I live on a corner lot. Kelly, I live right there on the corner. I can't find my house. And then I'm standing there and I look over at my neighbor's house and I see his truck. I said to myself, if that's Brian's house, then this one should be mine. our house blew up. There was not one 2x4 standing. It was blown up. If you ever get bored one of these days, Google Chris Stiles 1999 Oklahoma City tornado. That's my 15 minutes of fame. That house blew up. We went through the rubble for days, and finally it's just, you just get so worn out of doing that. Everything's just gone, and you just, just finally you're worn out of doing that, and you finally just push all this stuff off the curb and let the city pick it up. The Patrick, the guy that was driving the Bobcat, pushing everything to the side. I asked him. I said, Patrick, did you ever